Hello and welcome, I'm your Code Monkey, and the time has finally arrived. I've been waiting for this moment for years and now it's finally here. Unity Dots has been officially released. So look at this awesome thing. Here I have Unity 22 LTS with Dots installed. Do you notice anything different? The answer is on the top right corner. The preview packages warning that used to be there is gone because all of the Dots packages, they are now full production ready. It has been 5 years since Dots was announced all the way back in 2018. After lots of work, lots of iteration, it's awesome that we have finally reached production ready. I'd like to say congrats to everyone on the Unity Dots team for getting this far. This was a massive undertaking. It's a completely different way of making games, which will enable so many possible scenarios. But while it is completely different, it also integrates very well with the regular game object workflow. So keep that in mind, you don't have to go full dots or full game objects, you can mix them both. So that means keep using game objects for regular stuff, and then dive into dots for really performance-intensive applications. With 1.0 out means that you can now safely start using it in your own projects, and at the same time, this is really just the beginning. Now that the core is nice and stable, we will start to see dots be implemented into all kinds of backend tools. For example, the 2D IK package has already benefited from the burst compiler. So even if you don't directly use entities, you will still be benefiting from this tech. So this is really awesome, I'm definitely very excited for the future. That to me is the biggest feature of Unity 22 LTS, which is out right now, but there's tons more stuff. This is their long-term support version, which is the version you should be using most of the time. It has the most stability, and the fact that Dots is out now in this version means you can expect Dots to be stable. I did a really detailed tutorial a few months ago when version 1.0 was out in preview. Now I need to get back to it and research to see what has changed since then. I've been waiting for years to really dive deep into Dots. I was waiting for 1.0 to be stable so I can start making tons of videos that won't be outdated in a few weeks. So I definitely want to do that, perhaps a mini course on making a fun Dots project. But at the same time, right now I'm actually currently super busy working on my Steam game Dinky Guardians. Go ahead and add it to your wishlist. So it's kind of a bit tricky to find the time, but I'll try my best to at least do a quick intro on Dots 1.0. Beyond Dots, Unity sponsored this video to let you know about all of the awesome additions in version 22 LTS which has just released. There's also going to be a multi-hour livestream on the 22nd covering all about the 22 LTS version. You can sign up with a link in the description. So on this version, also related to Dots, is the Netcode for Entities package. This is their networking library based on entities. You might know all about Netcode for game objects. I made a full free course on making multiplayer games using that toolset. So NGO, that one is primarily meant for small-scale co-op games, whereas Netcode for Entities, this one is meant to support really super fast-paced, super optimized games. So things like fast-paced shooters, kind of like Apex Legends, that's the kind of thing that Netcode for Entities is perfect for. So super fast latency, or really intense multiplayer games with tons of networked objects, all of them all over the place. And of course, this one is just the networking layer. So on top of Netcode for Entities, you can use all of the other Unity multiplayer tools, just like you can use them in Netcode for game objects. So you can add lobby, you can add relay, you can implement matchmaker or game server hosting. All of that can work with either Netcode for game objects or Netcode for entities. Then Unity HDRP continues to push visual fidelity to the max. Now for me, I normally just stick with URP, but looking at these updates really makes me want to use a little bit of HDRP. You can now create some really awesome looking volumetric fog and volumetric materials. Making something volumetric always makes them look really excellent. The new water system is also extremely impressive. You can create oceans or rivers and make them look really stunning. It features some realistic waves with ripples and foam, also has some really nice underwater caustics, some reflection and refraction, so tons and tons of features. Another awesome volumetric feature are the new cloud layers. They look extremely realistic, they block the light just like you expect. You can easily and smoothly transition from nice and sunny to dark and cloudy. This is one feature that really helps set the mood for your game. Looking at all of these awesome tools really makes me wish URP had these features as well. Technically, for an alternative to the water system, you can pick up the water shader from the Boat Attack demo, that one also looks great. And for volumetric fog, they have it on their product board as under consideration, so if you'd like it to have that, then go onto that page and vote for it. Although personally on that page, I'm much more interested in screen space reflections. I think this is something the engine would really benefit from. But now let's take a look at what URP got in this latest version, because it still did get lots of awesome stuff. One big one is forward plus rendering, which eliminates the light limit, so you can have as many lights as you want. This is really useful, especially for big scenes where you want to use real-time lights and don't want to be limited to just a handful. My question on this is, of course, what kind of performance does this bring? I really hope it's not a big hit. Another great but very invisible addition is LOD Crossfade. If you've played any game, then you've certainly seen some models change drastically, which can really ruin immersion. LOD Crossfade makes that change almost invisible. This allows you to have many more LODs, which in turn makes your game much more performant, whilst not suffering from that janky visual stuttering. Like I said, it's a very invisible addition, but definitely a very important one. Then they have also added support for temporal anti-aliasing. Basically, this uses the camera motion vectors to smooth out the changes over time. This is especially noticeable in dark scenes with lights. With other techniques, you can sometimes see the lights flickering, whereas when using TAA, that really helps solve that by taking the previous frames into account, which makes the end result look really nice and smooth. Another awesome, highly requested feature is Decal Layers. Decals are a great way to add a lot more life to your levels by placing down some blood splatter or maybe some bullet holes or just place coins everywhere in your level. And now you can use Decal Layers to make sure decals only apply to the objects you want, so you no longer have issues with the character being hit by the decal. And another really awesome one that I've wanted to use for quite some time is the Shader Graph Fullscreen Master Node. Previously, in order to do full screen effects with Shader Graph, it required some very weird hacks. But now it's super easy. You just change the master node and you can easily use the entire power of Shader Graph to make some really awesome full screen effects. So you can now easily make effects like wobbling the screen, make it dissolve, make a zoom, paint it red, really anything you could do with Shader Graph, like for example all the various tutorials that I covered in my playlist. All of that you can now do as a full screen effect, which is really awesome. Then some more additions, they added shader variant pre-filtering. This one improves build times, which is always great for improving iteration speed, especially on consoles and mobile. And the built-in converter also got some upgrades to make it easier to upgrade from a previous project. Another really awesome tool is the Splines package. Now, I looked at this one when it first came out and it was super basic, but looking at it right now, they have added a massive amount of features. It's really impressive with so many use cases. You can easily create and position splines, you can add new points anywhere in the curve in any way you want. The contextual tools make it really easy to modify any point in any way you want. You can parent the splines, you can create various branches, and really do anything you can think of. Then using that spline shape, you can add some components on top to do things like spawn a prefab along the spline, or perhaps extrude a mesh to make some pipes or some roads, or maybe animate an object along the spline. So really tons of possible use cases. And the API is also nice and exposed, so you can build your own tools on top of this. There's no need to build your own spline package. Honestly, I'm really impressed with this one. I hadn't looked at it since release, and it's amazing how far it's come. Then another core pillar of Unity is just how many platforms it supports. Whatever you build with Unity, you can make a build for whatever device exists in the world. That can be mobile, console, desktop, XR. It's really amazing how Unity supports so many platforms. You just build your game once and you can put it anywhere. Now for Windows and Xbox, they have added improvements to DX12. This is one of those things where it's always great to have an option to just flip a switch and immediately get free performance. Then they also added Raytracing support for Xbox Series X and S and PS5. So if your game is pushing visuals to its limits, then this is definitely something you can now add. The incremental player build process, this one has also been really useful. Personally, I've experienced this myself when I was making the multiplayer course, which did require making tons of builds. Usually making a build would take something like 30 seconds to maybe a minute, whereas now, thanks to this one, it was really awesome to be able to make a build and test in about 5 to 10 seconds. Again, iteration speed is so important in game dev, so this one is really awesome. For Android games, there's now a package from ARM to help you access some low-level data. For Samsung phones, you can now use adaptive performance with support for visual scripting. And something that I didn't even know was possible is WebGL apparently now supports native C++ multithreading. I'm not too familiar with this area, but this seems insane to me. WebGL always had performance issues, so with multithreading, I wonder just how big this is going to be. And of course, if you're into XR, they made tons of improvements to their XR interaction toolkit. I have to say, XR is a topic that I've been meaning to look at for a long time. It's a very interesting space, and it might be about to blow up if Apple does indeed announce their device soon. So this is one area that I really need to find the time to research. And that's the general highlights for this Unity 22 LTS version. Again, the LTS is the most stable version, so it's one you probably should be using in most cases. Even if you're making just a game jam, I would probably still use this version unless there's something specific you need that only exists on the next version. Of course, this version is what I'm using for my Steam game, which I'm planning to launch in 2 months. You want to always be using the LTS version for maximum stability when you release something. This version is supported for 2 years. And going back to the beginning with this release with dots, with that one finally being production ready after so many years, that means you can now expect it to be stable and you can start to use it in your own projects with confidence. As for me, I definitely want to dive deep into dots. I just need to find the time to research it while also continuing to work on my game. Let me know in the comments any specific dots content you'd like to see. I'd like to look into making perhaps a basics video, just going over the core concepts, then perhaps one exploring some A-star pathfinding with dots, just like I did a long time ago, or perhaps convert some of my games to dots. I've definitely got tons of ideas, but do let me know what you would like to see. Now, if you want to learn more about the 22 LTS version, check the link in the description. You can check out the roadmap they presented at GDC 23, and there's going to be a multi-hour livestream on the 22nd, so definitely check that out for a deeper dive into all of these tools. Alright, hope that's useful. Check out these videos to learn some more. Thanks to these awesome Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.